Paden Roeland is a 22-year-old University of Manitoba student who works for a supply chain organization. Good morning, Peyton.
Good morning.
Dakota Barker is a 23-year-old Indigenous student studying theatre at the University of Winnipeg. Good morning, Dakota.
Good morning, Margaret.
And Adam Fast is a 23-year-old River College Polytech student studying carpentry. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning.
So, Peyton, you're thinking about buying your first home after graduation, maybe within the next year or so. When you think of that house, what are you imagining?
Well, I'm imagining a nice, decent-sized house, something I can certainly live in for a couple of years there. I'm not trying to buy, the smallest first thing I can. I've been working since I was 14, so I'm really hoping that in these next couple of years I'll live in a nice, decent-sized house. Maybe one that I could, start a family in.
Put down
not
some
right
roots.
now, but
but put down some roots and yeah. So you started making money pretty early. So sounds like you're a man with a plan.
oh yeah, yep. I knew since I was in high school there, I was like, I'm gonna get down to it. I want to own that house. I don't really want to rent an apartment. I'm still living at home at the moment, and I knew that house is what I wanted to move out into.
So what do your friends say when you tell them where you're at with this?
I'd say my friends, they're very supportive. They're like, I, respect that. And a lot of them have that same plan there. They all want to move out. They don't want to move into an apartment. They're all still living at home, which I think is a more common thing nowadays, to live at home while you're in school at least.
Right. How challenging has it been saving up the money for the down payment?
I'd say not too challenging. I am living at home, and the parents, I'm so thankful for them. They haven't charged me rent, and I'm able to eat off their dime. So my expenses have been pretty minimal through the years. You buy some fast food there, you buy this and that, but, the car's a big dent. But other than that, it's mostly just going into that bank account, going into those savings, and so on and so forth.
So Dakota, you'd love to buy a home when you listen to Paden? What's going through your mind?
It's very optimistic. I've also been working since I was like 15 years old as like a server. Like that's a lot different, yeah. And I've been working a lot of like retail jobs as somebody who's like grown up. I used to live in East St. Paul. Now I'm living in North Kildonan. I also live with my parents, and I'm so grateful that I don't have to pay rent as well. It's a great privilege, I think. But I'm still like, obviously, I thought I was going to be a teacher before I figured out that's not for me, and I'm really finding my footing in theater now, and I'm really loving it. However, there's a joke that goes around being like, oh, I can't wait to graduate theater school so I could become a barista. And the big thing that comes to me is, as like a theater professional, as an artist, yes, I can apply for grants and I can make this work, and I could also pick up other odd jobs, whether that's as a small business selling my art or as that retail jobs. However, those jobs, or even with doing them in multiplicity, is not going to allow me to really make savings. Mm-hmm. I'm already having bills I'm trying to pay, and it's hard enough already. Like I do pay for some of my own groceries, and I get help from family, and I'm really grateful to be like sponsored by my reservation to come to school. And it's
still hard.
Yeah. There's a lot of other aspects that come into it, but just for buying a home, something I'm hearing from my peers, in like wild contrast to Paden over here, is like, oh, I can't wait to move out so I can rent my first apartment. And I think it really speaks to this escapism of our generation, like not actually facing the fact of accepting that we won't be able to buy the very first house that we want, or being able to own it, based on the salaries and pay wages that we're being offered right now.
Do you see yourself as a homeowner one day?
God willing. I would love to own my own home. I was talking with a lot of people over the weekend about this. One of my friends is a real estate agent. He's only a couple years older than me. I was like, that's a wild career choice, man. But, props to you, Daniel. I love you. A big thing that we were talking about is a lot of people, when they think about buying a home, is that they think they're going to buy their ideal home, like Paden was saying, and like this big house, your dream home. Daniel was saying that really isn't optimistic, because to save up for a down payment for that is a lot of money, and then to also get accepted by a bank or credit union for a mortgage to continue paying it off. darn it, I lost my train of thought. But
It's obviously a lot to try to figure out,
There's a
and
lot to
even
balance.
trying to imagine what it might look like
For
a little
me-
bit down the road.
yeah, for myself. And my concern comes in. I know I'm in a very privileged place in my life right now. Like, I'm not working right now, which is one thing. But there's another thing where there are families where multiple people in the household are working multiple jobs and they're still barely making ends meet. How are they making savings so then they can save up to buy a house rather than rent?
Adam, how about you? Do you see yourself buying a house anytime soon?
Yeah, no, my plan is kind of to hopefully be in the position to buy a house in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm gonna have to take the approach, like I'm a carpenter, so I can use that to my advantage a little bit. I can buy a house that's much cheaper and maybe less in value and bring it up to the value that I want it for a more affordable price.
That's a
But,
great skill to have. If there's a do-it-yourselfer kind of ad, it's like, okay, maybe I can.
Yeah, and but just from work alone, it would be hard to. I'm in a similar situation to these folks here, where I pay a very small rent and my bills are relatively low. But yeah, I'm gonna have to buy a cheaper house and put some work into it. And to get to that point, I think I'm gonna have to also do side jobs as well, and because just the affordability now and the pricing with inflation and stuff like that eats away more of your paycheck. There's less to put away. I have to own a truck for work. That takes up a big chunk of the bills and stuff like that. So yeah, my optimistic plan is 3 to 5 years. Yeah.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of other ways you'll need to bring in more income to make it all happen?
Well, just diligently saving and picking up side jobs. That's a thing. You don't have to really commit to another, hand in another resume. You can, as a carpenter, if you can get your name out there, you can kind of do a couple side jobs on the weekend, and you can make a difference with that.
And I understand you want to perhaps buy other homes and rent them to other people.
Yeah, so if I wanted to buy a home for, let's say $200,000 range, I think that's kind of doable, and I could put a bunch of money into it. I would also be willing to live in the basement and rent out the upstairs. A couple of years ago, I lived in Ottawa in a house with a bunch of guys who I went to university with, and so I'm familiar with living in a crowded house, a family of 5.
That's no big deal.
I got no problem sharing it.
Dakota, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, no problem sharing. I just think it's really interesting how it might be a little off topic, but how we think we have to suffer or really, really push ourselves to get something that is really the bare minimum. That's kind of really disturbing to me. Yes, we should be putting in hard work to follow our dreams and do things that we think is really meaningful to us. But why should we make ourselves, as an artist, we've heard of the starving artist. But with this new age of self-care, wellness, and knowing more about the human body and brain, we know that stability and, less stress is better for you. Why should we subject ourselves to that? And another thing I'm also thinking about is if we think about 100 years ago, grandparents, parents, and grandchildren, all those people are living under one roof. And just thinking about a bunch of other things, or one last thing, sorry. I was talking to a woman named Julie. She's Gen X, and she was talking about buying a house with 3 of her other really good friends and doing the Golden Girls thing.
Right.
She deemed it. And I think that's also it is an option, but I just also it speaks to this bleakness.
How do you rise above the bleakness? I mean, Peyton, you sound like you have a very firm plan. You're going to make this happen. It's going to be good. You've got an idea of the kind of house that you want to live in. Put down some roots. How have you gotten there?
How have I gotten there? Well, like I said, through the support of my family, keeping those bills low. And I think I've lucked out a bit in my life. I was able to land some of these good student jobs, right? I was able to get work for the government for 2 years, and now I'm working at Richardson for 2 years, and I think there's a very good chance I'll be able to work full-time when I graduate this April. And all that is just a constant stream of income there, right? And they've, pay pretty decent there. Very appreciative of that one.
What do you all look for? What do you imagine when you think about owning your own home one day, whether it's next year or perhaps in 5 or 10 years? Does it matter about the location? We always hear location, location in real estate. Does it matter where it is, how close it is to amenities, who the neighbors are? What sorts of things, Adam?
Well, I grew up in Wolseley. That's where I grew up from like 0 to 20. And I really liked that neighborhood. It was super central. I could walk to all the schools that I went to. My friends were, nothing was more than 15 minutes away. So location is a big thing for me. I would take a hit on the quality of house for location. But that's probably one of the biggest things for me.
Yeah.
So.
Peyton, how about you?
Well, I actually live on a farm outside the city right now, so, I would love to have some kind of more rural thing. I do love a big yard, so that's something where I think when I move out, I'll be moving into a city, and that's going to be one of the big compromises I have to make is I'm going to have to give up this yard space. I'm going to have to give up this nice, big, free, sparsely populated area to go into a more dense one.
Dakota, how about you?
I'm going to actually say the opposite of Paden. As an Indigenous person, my dad, I had the privilege, he would bring me out to essentially like his reservation when he deems like Long Lake my reservation, Dakota Barkers, because I grew up there. But I grew up with a really deep connection to this land and nature, really. And when I'm here in the city, I feel very suffocated. And there's lots of great opportunities here, especially many forms. But I really think that I'd prefer to like live in a little house in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to live with the land.
Yeah.
And that's not a concern to me. If I don't have to worry about paying bills, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
But I know that's also like a little fantasy of mine.
Well, it's a beautiful one. Thank you all so much for coming in and sharing your dreams and the realities you're facing. Great talking with you.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, thank you very much.
Paden Roeland is a 22-year-old student at the University of Manitoba. Dakota Barker, 23-year-old Indigenous theater student from the U of Winnipeg. And Adam Fast is a 23-year-old carpentry student from RRC Polytech.